The frost claws at Fritz's fingers like a feral beast, turning his breath into ghostly wisps that dance in the dim glow of a flickering candle stub. He huddles in the shattered basement of what was once a Soviet apartment block, the walls scarred by shrapnel, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood and the faint, mocking scent of distant pine from a scavenged twig. Outside, the wind howls through Stalingrad's ruins, carrying echoes of artillery thunder that drown the feeble hum of "Still Nacht" from a comrade's cracked lips. Fritz clutches a crumpled letter from home, visions of his mother's warm strudel, the crackle of the family hearth, the soft laughter of his sister under twinkling lights, flood his mind, a cruel phantom in this frozen tomb. But as another shell screams overhead, splintering the night, he knows, this Christmas Eve, shrouded in the shadow of encirclement, may be the final one where hope flickers before the darkness claims them all. The shell bursts somewhere in the distance, a muffled roar that shakes loose snow from the cracked ceiling, dusting the huddled men like forgotten ornaments on a forsaken tree. Fritz presses his back against the icy concrete, his uniform stiff with frost and grime, as if the Volga itself has seeped into the fabric. The basement is a cavern of despair, walls pocked with bullet holes that whistle when the wind shifts, letting in drafts that cut like bayonets. Rubble litters the floor, shattered bricks, spent casings, the frozen husk of a rat that no one has the strength to kick away. In the center, they've fashioned a mockery of festivity, a spindly, Christmas tree, pieced from twisted barbed wire and splintered wood scavenged from a bombed-out beam, draped with bandages torn from the wounded, their edges stained rust-red with old blood. At its base, a single crust of black bread, hoarded from rations thinner than a prayer, sits like an offering to an indifferent god. No candles burn, no wax to spare, no matches dry enough, so Hans, the young medic with hands steadier than his voice, has sketched one in charcoal on the wall, a flickering flame that dances only in their imaginations, casting illusory warmth over the gloom. The cold is a living thing here, slithering under collars and into boots, gnawing at toes already blackened by frostbite. It bites deeper than the hunger, turning every breath into a labored rasp, every movement a betrayal of the body's frailty. Outside, the temperature plunges to 40 below, the snowdrifts swallowing tanks and men alike, while the Soviet guns pound relentlessly, their thunder a profane carol that mocks the holy eve. Yet inside Fritz's mind, a different world blooms, defiant and agonizing. He closes his eyes, and there it is, the hearth in his Berlin flat, flames crackling with the snap of pine logs, the air rich with the scent of his mother's Lebkuchen, ginger and honey melting on the tongue, dusted with powdered sugar like fresh snow on a peaceful street. His wife, Anna, laughing softly as she hangs glass baubles, her fingers warm against his when they touch. The memory floods him, a torrent of heat that clashes with the chill gripping his bones, making the ache worse, like fire on frostbitten skin. Why remember now? It only sharpens the blade of absence, twisting in his gut as he inhales the basement's foul bouquet, unwashed bodies ripe with sweat and fear, mingled with the acrid bite of cheap Mahorka tobacco from a shared cigarette, its smoke curling like incense in a desecrated church. And beneath it, improbably, the faint evergreen whisper from that scavenged twig propped in a helmet, a ghost of forests far from this urban grave. Karl, slumped beside him, mutters a fragment of "O Tannenbaum," his voice a hoarse whisper that cracks on the high notes. He's thinking of his boy, little Wilhelm, who must be unwrapping a wooden soldier under the family tree back in Munich, oblivious to the telegrams that haven't come yet. Karl's eyes, rimmed with exhaustion, stare at the makeshift tree as if willing it to transform, to sprout real needles and bear fruit instead of shrapnel. But the silence between verses is heavier than the artillery barrage, a void where laughter should echo, filled instead with the labored breaths of the dying in the corner, their moans a dirge for dreams deferred. No one speaks of the front lines, the shrinking pocket, the Luftwaffe's failed drops that scatter supplies into enemy hands. Tactics are for generals in warm bunkers. Here, in this hole, thoughts drift to the intangible, the soft curve of a lover's cheek, the steam rising from a bowl of kartoffelsuppe, thick with potatoes and fleeting bacon. Fritz fingers the letter again, Anna's script blurring in the dim light, think of the Christ kind, my love, bringing light to the dark. Irony stings like the wind, the only light here is the sporadic flash of explosions, illuminating frozen corpses in the streets above, their eyes wide in eternal surprise. Across the room, Otto shares a sliver of ersatz chocolate, its bitterness a pale shadow of the Milka bars from home. He passes it with trembling hands, each man taking a nibble as if it were communion wafer, sacred and scarce. Otto's mind wanders to his sister's piano in Hamburg, her fingers dancing over keys to Es ist ein Rosentsprungen, the melody weaving through rooms scented with beeswax and cinnamon. Now, the only music is the creak of boots on frozen earth, the distant rattle of machine guns like sleigh bells gone mad. The contrast pierces him, the holiness of that remembered night, candles glowing in windows against the blackout curtains, versus this horror, where faith fractures under the weight of encirclement. They huddle closer, shoulders touching for shared warmth that barely registers, the smell of decay from gangrenous wounds blending with the tobacco haze, a nauseating perfume that clings to their souls. In this pathetic ritual, they cling to fragments, a tarnished locket with a photo of a smiling child, a whispered prayer that tastes of desperation. The guns fall silent for a moment, a deceptive truce, and in that hush, the memories swell, overwhelming. Fritz envisions Anna by the window, snowflakes kissing the glass, her hand on her swelling belly, the child he may never meet. The thought crushes him, heavier than the rubble overhead, as tears freeze on his lashes. Karl murmurs about his mother's reladen, the meat rolled tight with onions and pickles, simmering in gravy that could thaw the coldest heart. But here, the only sustenance is illusion, the bread crust divided into crumbs, each one a bitter reminder of abundance lost. The sketched candle on the wall seems to mock them, its false glow highlighting the gaunt faces, the hollow eyes that reflect not stars, but the abyss. As the night deepens, another shell winds closer, shaking the foundation. They brace, hearts pounding in unison, the fragile celebration teetering on the edge of oblivion. In their minds, home beckons like a siren's call, warm, whole, holy, while the war's grip tightens, cold and unrelenting, turning this sacred eve into a vigil for the damned. The shell's echo fades into the encroaching dusk, leaving a ringing silence that presses down like the weight of the Volga's ice. The sun has surrendered, dipping below the shattered horizon in a smear of blood red, as if the sky itself bleeds for the encircled Sixth Army. Christmas Eve unfurls now, a velvet shroud over Stalingrad's corpse, the temperature plummeting further into an abyss where breath freezes mid-exhale and exposed skin blisters in the wind. Fritz exhales slowly, watching the vapor coil toward the low ceiling, mingling with the haze from their dying cigarette stubs. The men shift uneasily in the dimness, their shadows elongated grotesques on the pockmarked walls, as if the bunker itself conspires to devour them. No stars pierce the overcast, only the occasional flare arcs upward from distant positions, a false comet trailing sparks that illuminate heaps of rubble and twisted metal, reminders that the Soviets encircle them like a noose, tightening with every hour. In this deepening gloom, a fragile ritual stirs to life, born of desperation and the human ache for connection. Hans, the medic, rummages in his blood-stained pack and produces a miracle, a half bottle of schnapps, smuggled from a fallen officer's kit, its label peeled and faded like old skin. The glass is cold as death, but he uncorks it with a soft pop that echoes too loudly, making them all flinch. For the Christ kind, he whispers, his voice trembling not from fear but from the raw emotion clawing up his throat. They pass it in a circle, each man taking a sip, the liquid fire searing down throats parched by rationed water turned to slush. Fritz feels it bloom in his chest, a fleeting warmth that mocks the frost encasing his limbs, evoking the mulled wine his father would heat over the stove in their Dresden home, spiced with cloves and cinnamon, steam rising like prayers on Advent Sundays. The schnapps tastes of juniper and regret, sharp against the rot in the air, and for a moment, it bridges the chasm between them, hardened killers with faces smeared in soot and frozen mud, their eyes hollow from weeks of siege, now softening in the shared burn. As the liquor loosens tongues, Karl begins the hymn, his baritone cracking at first, then steadying into, still nacked, Heilig nacked. The words unfurl softly, a whisper at the edge of audibility, for the enemy lurks just beyond the ruins, Soviet patrols ghosting through the snow, their boots crunching like judgment. The men join in, voices layering in hushed harmony, the melody weaving through the bunker like smoke. Otto's tenor rises pure and aching, evoking boyhood choirs in cathedral naves, while Fritz mouths the verses, his mind flooding with Anna's soprano beside him in church, her hand in his, the air scented with frankincense and fresh evergreens. Here, the carol clashes grotesquely with the surroundings, beautiful notes rebounding off cold steel beams scavenged from a wrecked panzer, the lyrics of peace vibrating against the distant thud of mortars, like angels singing in hell. Irony twists in Fritz's gut. These men, who have bayoneted foes in the gut and watched comrades evaporate in artillery blasts, now huddle shoulder to shoulder, some clasping hands in the dark, tears carving clean tracks through the grime on their cheeks. Killers cradling vulnerability, their rifles propped nearby like silent sentinels, barrels still warm from earlier skirmishes. The song builds, alles schlaft, einsam wacht, but nothing sleeps here, the night watches with predatory eyes, and the holiness of the hymn only amplifies the horror, turning each syllable into a plea against the inevitable. Yet beneath this intimate glow, dread coils like barbed wire in their bellies. Every creak of settling rubble sounds like a sniper's bolt sliding home, every gust whistling through cracks like the whisper of incoming artillery. They sing softer now, voices tapering as paranoia mounts. What if the Ivan's here? What if this fragile truce shatters with a grenade lobbed through the entrance? Hans pauses mid-verse, head cocked, his hand freezing on the bottle. A distant snap echoes, perhaps a twig underfoot or a trigger pull. The men freeze, breaths held, the schnapps turning sour in their mouths. Fritz's heart hammers, visions of home fracturing, Anna alone by the tree, her face pale in candlelight, wondering if his letter arrived, if he's alive. The warmth of the ritual feels like a lie, a thin veneer over the abyss, the encirclement complete, supplies dwindling to whispers, the Luftwaffe's promises of relief as empty as the skies. Karl resumes the song, but his eyes dart to the doorway, where snow drifts in like an uninvited ghost, piling against boots caked in frozen blood. In the lulls between verses, stories spill forth, intimate confessions whispered as if to ward off the cold. Otto speaks of his fiancée in Cologne, her letters smelling of lavender even after crossing fronts, promising a wedding under blooming lindens. But his voice breaks. The last post brought news of Allied bombs flattening her street, and now he wonders if she's under rubble like this, her laughter silenced forever. The contrast stabs deep, the sacred night meant for family reunions, for children's eyes wide at gifts, now reduced to this huddle of the damned, sharing sips that taste of home's phantom. Fritz thinks of his unborn child, kicking in Anna's womb. Will it know a father's touch, or only the echo of this war's thunder? The schnapp circles again, diminished now, each swallow a communion of sorrow, the burn chasing away numbness but awakening deeper pains, frostbitten fingers throbbing, empty stomachs gnawing, souls frayed by the siege's relentless grind. As the hymn fades into silence, a comrade, young Werner, barely 19, produces a harmonica from his pocket, its reeds warped by the cold but still capable of a melody. He blows, es luktet ein stern, the notes trembling like candle flames in wind, evoking village squares aglow with lanterns, markets bustling with roasted chestnuts and glühwein steam. The men sway slightly, arms linked now, dirty faces illuminated by the imagined starlight, tears freezing before they fall. Irony reigns, these warriors, forged in the Führer's fire, reduced to weeping boys clutching at straws of tradition, their carols a defiant whisper against the steel jaws closing around them. But the dread never relents, a low rumble builds outside, perhaps tanks shifting or illusions born of exhaustion. They brace again, the ritual teetering, warmth flickering like that sketched candle on the wall. In this unsettling intimacy, the holy night pulses with life, yet death hovers at the threshold, turning every shared glance into a farewell. The schnapps empties, the songs hush, and the underlying terror sharpens. This peace is illusion, the war's horror eternal, and dawn may bring only the final unraveling. The harmonica's last note lingers, a fragile thread in the thickening silence, as Werner tucks it away with hands numb from the cold. The men exhale collectively, the schnapps' warmth fading like a dying ember, leaving only the raw sting of exposure. Fritz leans his head back against the wall, eyes half closed, clinging to the afterglow of the ritual, the shared voices still echoing in his mind, a fleeting sanctuary amid the siege's crush. Outside, the wind moans through the ruins, carrying faint drifts of snow that sift through the entrance like ash from a crematorium. For a heartbeat, peace holds, illusory and precious, the holy night's grace seeming to defy the encirclement's iron grip. Then, without warning, the world erupts. A whistle pierces the night, sharp, insidious, like the devil's own carol, and the first Soviet shell slams into the street above, detonating with a thunderclap that rips the air apart. The basement shudders violently, ceiling beams groaning as dust and debris cascade down in a choking cloud. Incoming! Karl bellows, but the word is swallowed by the roar as another round follows, closer this time, blasting through the adjacent wall in a spray of concrete and rebar. The illusion shatters like fragile glass under a boot. The singing men, moments ago linked in brotherhood, now scramble in primal terror, their faces twisting from serene reflection to wide-eyed panic. Fritz dives for cover, heart slamming against his ribs, as the air fills with the acrid stench of cordite and pulverized stone, mingling grotesquely with the lingering pine scent from their twig tree. Chaos descends like a violated sacrament, turning the pathetic celebration into a profane massacre. The makeshift Christmas tree topples in the blast wave, its barbed wire branches crumpling under falling rubble, the blood-stained bandages igniting from a sparked flare that tumbles in from the breach. Flames lick upward, hungry and orange, devouring the scavenged wood and casting hellish shadows on the walls, the sketched candle now a mockery, its charcoal lines smeared by dust into oblivion. Hans screams as shrapnel tears through his side, a jagged shard embedding in his chest like a cruel ornament, blood bubbling from his lips as he clutches the empty schnapps bottle, its glass shattering in his grip. Mein Gott, he gasps, but the words dissolve into gurgles. His medic's hands, once steady for sutures, now slick and trembling, painting the floor crimson. Otto lunges to help, only for a secondary explosion to hurl him back, his arm mangled, bone protruding white against the red, as if the war itself has clawed him open. The transition is brutal, merciless, from the hush of Heilige Nacht to a cacophony of screams and detonations, the holy melody replaced by the guttural howls of the wounded and the relentless pounding of Katyusha rockets, their whistles a demonic choir raining fire. Fritz crawls through the haze, ears ringing, tasting blood and grit on his tongue, the same mouth that whispered Anna's name now filled with the metallic tang of destruction. His letter from home, that precious tether to warmth and life, slips from his pocket amid the scramble, trampled under boots and soaked in the spreading pool from Hans's wound. Ink runs like tears, Anna's words, think of the light, blurring into illegible stains, violated by the horror spilling across the page. Karl, pinned under a fallen beam, roars in agony, his leg twisted unnaturally, the smell of burning flesh rising as the flames from the tree creep toward him, singeing his uniform and evoking not the cozy hearth of Munich but the pyres of the damned. Werner, the boy with the harmonica, clutches his instrument like a talisman, but a fragment of shell slices his throat open mid-cry, his blood arcing in a spray that spatters the remaining bread crust, turning their meager communion into a grotesque Eucharist of flesh and flour. In the midst of this violation, the underlying dread crystallizes into absolute hopelessness, a black wave crashing over Fritz as he huddles behind a pile of rubble, rifle clutched uselessly. The artillery barrage intensifies, shells walking closer like footsteps of doom, each impact shaking the basement's foundations and cracking the walls wider, letting in gusts of frozen air laced with the reek of gunpowder and rotting corpses from the streets above. He realizes it then, in a gut-wrenching epiphany, God is not here. The holy night, meant for miracles and rebirth, has abandoned them to this frozen grave, the encirclement a tomb sealed by Soviet steel and snow. No Luftwaffe angels descend with supplies, no Führer's promise breaks the siege. Fritz's mind reels back to home, the fireplaces glow, his mother's strudel warm and sweet, Anna's belly swelling with life, but the memories twist into knives now, slicing deeper because they highlight the irrevocable loss. This is their end, not a pause in the war but its culmination, Stalingrad as the 6th Army's sepulchre, Christmas Eve their vigil before annihilation. Tears freeze on his cheeks as he watches Otto drag himself toward Karl, only for another blast to bury them both in debris, their cries muffled under the weight. The flames spread, consuming the remnants of their ritual, the twig pine curling to ash, the bandages fueling the blaze, while outside, flares illuminate the advancing shadows of enemy infantry, their bayonets glinting like fallen stars. Fritz presses his forehead to the cold floor, whispering a final prayer that tastes of ash and despair. The horror envelopes him fully, body and soul, the violation not just of flesh but of faith, the war stripping away the last veneer of humanity. Screams echo, fading into moans as the barrage peaks, the bunker filling with smoke that stings like judgment. Hopelessness settles like the snow outside, heavy and unyielding. This is no silent night, but a symphony of extinction, where the only light is the fire devouring their dreams, and the grave yawns wide to claim them all. Dawn creeps over Stalingrad like a reluctant thief, the pale sun rising bloodless and cold above the endless white steppe. Christmas morning arrives in silence, no bells, no laughter, only the wind whispering through the skeletal ruins, carrying the faint creak of frozen timber and the distant crack of ice on the Volga. Fresh snow has fallen overnight, a merciful shroud blanketing the devastation, craters smoothed into gentle hollows, shattered walls softened under drifts, the blackened remnants of tanks half buried like ancient beasts felled in mid-roar. Bodies lie scattered in the streets above the bunker, German soldiers frozen in their final poses, some curled fetal against the cold, others sprawled where shrapnel claimed them, their faces serene in death, eyelashes rimed with frost, uniforms dusted white as if the snow seeks to erase the horror. The air smells of nothing now, no pine, no blood, no gunpowder, just the clean, merciless bite of winter, indifferent to the carnage below. Inside the collapsed basement, the scene is a tomb. Hans lies where he fell, his chest a ragged ruin, eyes staring blankly at the caved-in ceiling, the empty schnapps bottle still clutched in his frozen fingers like a final toast denied. Otto and Karl are buried beneath the beam and rubble, only a boot or a gloved hand protruding, stiff and unyielding. Young Werner's body slumps against the wall, throat torn open, his harmonica glinting dully in the faint light filtering through cracks, blood crystallized into dark jewels on the snow-dusted floor. Fritz survives, barely, wounded in the leg by shrapnel, frostbite claiming his toes, but alive amid the dead. He crawls from the wreckage as the barrage ebbs, emerging into the blinding white, joining the ragged columns of the 6th Army's remnants. They trudge westward through the snow, skeletal figures in threadbare coats, scavenging frozen horseflesh or discarded rations, harried by Soviet patrols. Most will not last the weeks ahead, starvation, typhus, the endless marches in captivity claiming them one by one. Fritz, like so many, vanishes into the Gulag's maw after the final surrender in February, perhaps dying in a camp far from home, his name lost among the thousands who never return. Yet amid the ruin, one artifact endures. Pinned to the bunker wall before the shells came, now half buried but miraculously intact beneath a fallen beam, is the charcoal drawing on the reverse of a captured Soviet map, the Madonna, her veil enveloping the Christ child in tender protection, her gaze serene and sorrowful. Scrawled around her in hurried script, 1942 Weihnachten in Kessel, Festung Stalingrad, Licht, Leben, Liebe. Light, life, love. The paper is singed at the edges, smudged with soot and blood, but the image holds, a fragile beacon in the desecration. In the chaos of retreat, a surviving comrade finds it, folds it carefully, and tucks it into his coat. It will fly out on one of the last planes, carried to safety, to become a symbol whispered among the doomed, then preserved in churches far from this grave, a testament to the flicker of humanity that even hell could not fully extinguish. In the end, as the snow claims the ruins and the wind erases footprints, what remains is the profound theft, not just of lives, but of souls. Men who once dreamed of hearths and children, who sang of silent nights and holy peace, reduced to frozen husks in a foreign wasteland, their faith shattered, their warmth stolen forever. War devours the divine spark, leaving only echoes of what might have been, light extinguished, life forsaken, love buried under endless white.